Ricky!
Hey man, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. We're having technical difficulties, and it's distracted me, but from what we actually have to talk about today.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing, man, because the things that we have to talk about today aren't the most enjoyable on their own, anyways.
They are not.
Because we're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers, and we're going to talk about their game against who was the team that just completely derailed all of our momentum? Oh, that's right. The former Frank Reich Indianapolis Colts just mollywopped us last week.
Yeah.
And we are one game away from facing the Chicago Bears, who own our first round pick for 2024. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today, Alex.
Yeah. And so the Bears didn't look. They don't. I mean, I still don't know how good the Saints are. The Saints have played one team over 500 all year long. One. Mm-hmm. They played two teams that have 500 and better, and they've lost both of those games. So, like, the Bears did look good outside of throwing like 9 picks. They should have won that game. I actually bet them to win that game because I still don't believe in the Saints. But Bagent threw that game away. So I don't know how good they are. But I know the Saints are still bad. But the Bears are just worse. I think they're getting Justin Fields back.
Yeah.
Oh man.
They get Khalil Herbert, and we'll talk about that when we talk about that game. But you know, the concerning part for me, man, is it's not that I don't know how good or bad the Bears are, or the Saints are, or the Colts are, or any other team in the NFL at this point. But I do think that I have a pretty good idea about if the Carolina Panthers are a good football team at this point.
Yeah.
And man, that super disappointing answer is no, they're not, man. We're just not a very good football team.
Yeah. And like coming into the season, I was talking about the supporting cast, and I was like, yeah, if I looked at our supporting cast and I looked at the Texans supporting cast, I'd be like, I'd take ours all day long.
Right.
All day long.
Right.
And
specifically the offensive line.
No matter what, I would have said, at least we have a good offensive line. At least we can run the ball. At least, they're not going to be able to do that, and they still can't run the ball.
Right?
Like they cannot run the football, and they're still having a quarterback that can throw for 470 yards. Granted, that's against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that Desmond Ridder came back against. That Jared Goff, who can't play football on the road, put up 353 yards against. Who Josh Allen just put up 323 yards against. That's a bad secondary in Tampa Bay. But
it was a bad secondary we played against Indianapolis.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
how did it happen? How did this be? Because it's not like losing Donta Foreman and DJ Moore just like
we crippled every aspect of the offense. Yeah.
Our big losses last year were DJ Moore, Donta Foreman, and Sam Darnold. Like those were, and we replaced those with Adam Thielen and DJ Chark, Bryce Young, and Miles Sanders. Theoretically, we should still have a pretty solid offense.
Right. Yeah. In theory, that shouldn't cause you to go from, a middle of the pack type of offensive approach to the absolute basement of the NFL. Right. I think the problem, man, that I keep running into when I'm really like evaluating and diving into what is making this offense and this team so bad this year is that it doesn't matter how much you try to contextualize some of these shortcomings. You can say we're playing against aggressive defense in the Brian Flores Minnesota game or something like that. You can say, well, personnel matchup of the Indianapolis defensive line against our offensive line should have given enough reason for pause to not buy into the poor statistics of the Colts defense, right? You can contextualize all of it that you want to, and a lot of it is true. It's analytics that you can't argue with, right? It's statistics. It's things that exist. But the problem is that our team doesn't play any kind of motivated, inspired, creative, disciplined, just any good brand of football. We do not play on a consistent basis. And that's the honest to God truth, man. And it does come down to coaching. I understand we want to talk about the lack of talent on this roster. It's not like we're the least talented team in the NFL, though. At least not on paper when you're coming into this. That's not the way that we looked at it. It's also, if you're going to sit here and say that everything is on Fitterer, right? Because that's kind of what we get down to when we talk about, is it player talent? Is it coaching? Is it David Tepper meddling like some Scooby-Doo villain from the top of the tower? Like we could talk about all of those possibilities. But if you're going to say that it's on Fitterer and the talent on this team, the coaching staff had a lot to do with bringing in a lot of these guys. They said they wanted them. They said that they fit the scheme that they want to run. And they felt very confident in the scheme working and being the reason why we could contend for the NFC South. So at the end of the day for me, man, and I know this is just our opening, so I'm not trying to get too far into that. But at the end of the day for me, you can't have this roster that is made up of players that these coaches wanted and sold the fans on from the offseason into the preseason, despite all the struggles that we saw, sold it as, hey, man, once these games matter, we're going to be a different looking football team. And we're not. So there is a coaching element to this that is very, very concerning for me.
Yeah. I don't. Fitterer is the last thing on my mind. Like, it really is. Like, we were scoring touchdowns with Shi Smith and Tommy Tremble last year. Like, DJ Moore had 880 yards, 88 yards last year. Losing DJ Moore ain't the problem. Like, it really is not.
It's a problem, right? Like, that's definitely a downgrade.
Sure, yeah, but Adam Thielen's going to have 1,000 yards receiving this year. Like, yes, he did a lot for this team, but we were scoring points with Tommy Tremble and Shi Smith in the last game of the season. Like, that's who we're scoring touchdowns. So I don't think that. Like, who would you rather have? DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall, and Shi Smith as our top three receivers. I can't even remember who else we had. We cut Chosen Anderson halfway through the season and got better. Or would you rather have DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, Mingo, same Terrace Marshall? Like, added Hayden Hurst, added Miles Sanders on the back. Like, we have better overall options, and it's just like, what? I just don't understand.
Yeah, and the one thing that I'll say about the DJ Moore, and you're right, because Thielen's going to put up productive stats this year. Yeah. And he is, man, he's our most consistent receiver. He's really our only consistent receiver. But not all, let's just say that both of them get 1,000 yards, right? Let's say DJ Moore and Adam Thielen both get 1,000 yards. I know, Not all 1,000 yards are created equally, right? Because we know that what Adam Thielen is doing to reach that 1,000-yard mark, we know that it's a much different approach stylistically and from a threatening standpoint of what he brings to an offense are completely different things. And what DJ Moore would bring to this offense and to Bryce Young's development is very much so what is missing on this offense. And the problem is, though, and this is where it goes back to the coaching, we were told that wouldn't be an issue. That hey, yeah, look, we understand we're losing our number one wide receiver, but we have this offensive scheme and we have this game plan, and we're bringing in these very comprehensive complementary pieces into this offense for a reason. Yeah. And with a clear idea on how we're going to deploy those pieces. And none of that has happened. Like, I just don't think at this point I'm buying any of the coach speak that we're getting, right? Like, it's just opportunities. We just need more opportunities. We need to do this. We were told at the beginning of the year that Terrace Marshall Jr. was going to be an integral part. He just needed the opportunities and the snaps. He's not getting it. And you try to say you forgot to put him in one game and then you don't put him in the next 3 or 4. I'm sorry, man, but I think that we're just being fed a ton of bullshit right now. And that's kind of the problem, is that fans were really looking forward to entering this new chapter of transparency and competency from an NFL coaching staff, as opposed to the college one that we had. And we're right back in this boat of not buying anything that we're being sold. And that's extremely disheartening for me as a fan. And I imagine for many fans that it's the same way of, can't you just say that this is what you had envisioned and that you're failing at it? But if they admit that they're failing at something that they meticulously laid out and purposefully put together in this manner, then every single one of them is accountable and you can't pass that buck. And I think that they are trying very hard right now, very adamantly, to avoid that accountability until the latter part of the season, where they can say, look, we have to make one change, not all changes. Right. We're creeping into like sweeping change mode right now, in my opinion. That this entire coaching staff and front office will be lucky to survive this season, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably if they gave Matt Rule 4 years or 3.5 years, they're going to give Reich 2.
You would think so, but man, if he goes 1-16, is he going to get 2 years?
Right.
Would you give somebody 2 years?
Yeah, that's another thing. Like Joe Burrow comes in and goes 1-6 in his first 7 games. And he didn't have the turnover problem that we had, but Trevor Lawrence did. Granted, he had Urban Meyer. But Joe Burrow had that same coaching staff that he went to the Super Bowl with his first year. And he had it, number one. He had T. Higgins. And he had Tyler Boyd. And he had the ghost of A.J. Green. Like, he had guys when he came into the league. And he started off 1-6, which is what Bryce is at. Right. But he didn't have the turnover. And everybody gave him a pass because the offensive line was so bad.
Right.
It's pretty
for sure, man.
So I hate to say it's still too early.
Yeah.
But it might still be too early.
Oh no, it's 100% too early for any of the Bryce Young commentary, right? Yeah. Like, it's 100% too early for that. Maybe the one part that I would say also is like a glaring difference between the Joe Burrow, Bryce Young rhetoric was that Joe Burrow, going into the situation in Cincy, there was no expectation of they're going to compete in his first year. They knew that they were a bad team. They knew that they didn't have the pieces. Coming into this year with Carolina, it was this best situation for a rookie quarterback to get dropped into, right? Like, this is the place where he can hit the ground running. And honestly, that was just a misfire, man. And a lot of people close to the team were really informed on that. Like, I go back to what Mike Kay has said all off season, that he felt this was a rebuild. You know, it was a 2-year rebuild, and this was the first year. It's just not the messaging that we were given. Now, there are also a lot of people that were really close with the team that bought into all of this, right? Like, it's not just the fans being hoodwinked or tricked into this. Like, there was a lot of people that really bought into it. And that's why it feels so much like a failure. But the other thing with Bryce, when he was coming out, there was already so many preconceived notions about why this guy should fail that didn't exist for any of these other first-round quarterbacks, right? Like, the Trevor Lawrence is a great thing to do because he was one of the greatest prospects to come out at quarterback in the last decade. But he didn't have the questions about his size and strength and how his game translates to the NFL, right? Joe Burrow, very similar. Joe Burrow was kind of a one-hit wonder in college. Like, he was a high recruit, but he transferred out of Ohio State over to LSU. Didn't know if it was just a 1 year because of the weapons he had around him, or was he legitimately that good of a quarterback? But there was still I don't think that he has a big enough arm. I don't think that he is big enough. I don't think that he can withstand the hits and the punishment of the NFL. We had all of that already going up against Bryce. So the minute that he's struggling right now, people are running victory laps to prove that they're right, as opposed to actually caring about the trajectory of Bryce Young's career. It's not so much about determining, is Bryce Young playing good football? It's about, I told you that he would struggle. And that's a really funny way to go about things, man. It shows very much that you're not concerned about the actual football stance of things. You're concerned with being correct and your opinion being right. And a lot of times, man, I'm just going to preface this by saying that a lot of times the people who are so concerned about being first and being right, you end up looking real foolish in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, people that dismiss Josh Allen too soon.
Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Jared Goff to an extent. You know what I mean? Like, there's just there's so many examples. Jalen Hurts. There are so many examples, man, of good quarterbacks, legitimate NFL starting Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks having a rough time, man, in their first year, especially when you have a lack of weapons and a shaky, at best, offensive line.
Yeah, so I think that the Joe Burrow thing is and I think that you made a good point with expectations, because like Joe Burrow was put into this position and not expected to do anything well, right?
Mhm.
And theoretically, Bryce Young was. And I thought a lot to do a lot of the reasons that we thought that Joe Burrow wouldn't succeed is because one is offensive line and two is defense.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out our offensive line ain't great, and we have about 3 healthy bodies on defense right now. But he had T. Higgins, Boyd, AJ Green, Joe Mixon. He had weapons around him. So,
and those are weapons that make a difference too, because you talk about T. Higgins and the athleticism that he possesses just in his own. Even Joe Mixon, right? Yeah. These are guys that win one-on-ones. These are winner athletes. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say that about our guys, but our guys are not currently winner athletes. They are not going to go out and win their matchups on a consistent basis to create something that the offense, the scheme, and whatever else it is can create for them. We don't have that right now. And that is a very big difference, man. You talk about Jalen Hurts. What happened once he got A.J. Brown? A guy that could just open it up on his own. That, it's the old saying, he's down there somewhere, so I'm going to throw it type of situation.
Yeah. Oh,
we don't have that, man. We just don't have any of that, man, right now on this team. And not to pile on the young guys, man, because they're young and inexperienced. But Jonathan Mingo was super disappointing this week for me, to be completely honest. I had expectations of him having a nice game against Indianapolis, especially with DJ Chark a little bit limited going into the week. I thought Thomas Brown looked like he was starting to use him in different deployments, different alignments. I didn't see it again, man. And I still see Jonathan Mingo really being lazy on some of these routes, man. Routes that that he's not necessarily the primary target and that he's not the first read. He is just going through the motions, man. And that is so detrimental to the structure of the play overall, that if defenders can already say, look, that's not a realistic option. Look at him, man. He's strolling like he's walking around Latta Park right now in Charlotte, as opposed to running a quick flat route. It's just really difficult, man, for Bryce to gain trust and familiarity with the guy that doesn't go 100% all of the time. And his route running is just not there, man. His feel for the game is behind. And for the 39th overall pick, man, that could put you behind the 8 ball, dude, because you expect that person to be a significant contributor at that pick with this offense and the rest of the weapons around him. There are other teams that could take a guy with the 39th pick that has boom bust potential and not say we're reliant on him in year 1. We weren't built that way. This guy was supposed to be our explosive receiver. Even if he kind of had to ease into that role a little bit, he was still supposed to hit that level at some point this year. And it doesn't look attainable for me right now. It looks like he's going to essentially have to redshirt this type of year and learn the game of football at the NFL level to be an impact player, man. And even then, it's not a warm and fuzzy feeling about him eventually reaching that, man.
Yeah. So we're getting into we're basically just organically getting into the review of this game,
right?
So we're talking about the offense. So you see what happens. So it's just easy to play defense against us, right? It's just so easy because we are never going to give our quarterback enough time to beat you long, and our receivers aren't going to win one-on-one matchups where you're that nervous. Right. Yeah, you're not that nervous about them beating over the top.
Correct.
Now, think of that Hayden Hurst catch where he slips out. We finally have a little bit of time. That's a Thomas Brown offense. That's a
delayed movement. Right.
Yes, exactly. And it just doesn't work if it doesn't start up front. And it's just wild that these crappy linemen in McVay offenses and Shanahan offenses, these are nobodies who heard of any of these offensive linemen for the Rams this year? And you know what? They're just passing all over everyone. and it's just wild. It is just blowing my mind that we can't do it, but we can't do it if the offensive line doesn't help. And it's just it's so frustrating.
And there was expectations for this offensive line, man, and that's one of the parts that makes the offensive failures so evident and difficult to kind of like digest, is that if this line had played at least a little bit, you know what I mean?
Like just what they were last year. Like,
sorry, my thing is going. Hold on. Yeah, so the offensive line, man, that's just the part that really makes it difficult, is because we had expectations for this line performing at least to like an adequate level, right? They kind of came on late last year and they figured out some stuff with helping with some of the assignments, because Icky still struggled on pass pro, but they figured out a way to help with that. You talk about the Rams and like these like nobody offensive linemen. What they did do is they drafted Steve Avila, the guard out of TCU, and they anchored that interior of that line. They use so much of these motions. We talk about Puka Nacua coming in and blocking on the sides. They understand their deficiencies on their line, and that's those bookends. That's their left and right tackle, right? Like that's where they knew that they were going to have issues. There wasn't a left or a right tackle in the draft at that position that they liked to make an impact. So they took a guy in Avila that makes an immediate impact, and that they know can solidify that part, so that all they have to do is actually scheme and game plan for the outside portion of the offensive line and for the protection. We're playing right now as if we don't have any idea what to do to help our offensive line. And perhaps some of that stems from the fact that we're having poor play across the entire unit. I guess that can definitely key into that. But there still has to be more of a concerted effort, in my opinion, on figuring out what concepts do and don't work with our offensive line, and to go ahead and start forming that identity at 10 weeks into the damn season. I don't know how we get this conversation about not having an offensive identity. We know what we cannot do on a consistent basis, right? Mm-hmm. We know that we're not going to stretch the field. We know that we're not going to be the most explosive offense. But we also know what we do have on the roster and what we saw success from last year with a great deal of the same players. We got to focus, man, on this run game. And whether it's power or zone or whatever the offensive blocking scheme is, figure out which one we do the best and start doing on a more consistent basis. You're not doing this offense and Bryce Young any favors by not having an identity 10 weeks into the season. It is crazy for me to hear a coach say that, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's almost like Reich doesn't know what to do, because Reich, I mean, had an elite offensive line when he was with the Eagles. He had an elite offensive line when he was with the Colts. It just so he could run his type of offense easily. Because whatever you say about our pass catchers, went down when Reich early on in Reich's career, and they were like running with Zach Pascal and God, who else did they have? They had Paris Campbell, but like he barely played. I can't even remember the other receiver he had. Like they had no ones at receiver there, but they had a good offensive line, and he was able to run this kind of system he had, even with Marlon Mack, and like these nobodies. So I think an offensive line would really help, but I don't know, man. I don't. It's tough. But I do want to, like, what we can celebrate is, man, the defense with no one on it is playing well. So, like, just reviewing this pass game, they allowed under 200 yards. Their pass defense right now is fourth as in passing yards in the NFL. Granted, that might be because we get ran all over, but that's still really, really awesome. And we held the already crowned elite CJ Stroud to under 150 yards passing and to 13 points. So the defense is playing really well, even though, let me just read you our injury report right now.
Yeah, everybody stick around for about 30 minutes because Alex is going to do the injury report.
Yeah, so we got the guys that are not currently on IR. I mean, I'll say Luigi Villain's name, who I honestly did not know until yesterday.
Might not have another opportunity to say it. So.
Yeah. Brian Burns, concussion, elbow. D.A. Chark, elbow. T.J. Anderson, concussion. LaVisca Chenault, ankle. Stephen Sullivan, shoulder. Luigi Villain, knee. Xavier Woods, thigh. Von Bell, quadriceps. Blackshear, ankle. Iquanu, ankle. Marquise Haynes, back. Frankie Luvu, hip. Tommy Tremble, shoulder. Even with, like, I know I said offensive players too, just because I didn't want to go in between. But I want to say we've had all but 3 or 4 starters miss a game or go on IR on this defense, and they're still playing really, really well, which good for Evero, man. And it sucks that he's not getting the praise he deserves because of how bad the offense is playing. But man, he's playing well, especially with the inadequacies at the defensive line that he has as far as defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Man, they're playing so well. And I really hope that they can do something against the Bears. Because it doesn't look like they're going to have almost anyone except for Frankie Luvu this week.
Yeah, I think that you make such a good point, man, that Evero is playing with like one hand tied behind his back when it comes to calling this defense, right?
Yeah.
He's unable to even implement some of the things that he was successful with in Denver as far as the disguising of coverages and things like that. We're playing by far the lowest percentage of press coverages. I think we're playing press coverage on like 30% of the snaps, which is by far the low in the league. We don't have the personnel with JC Horn out to be able to allow press on one side, right? Like we just don't have that. When you look at Shaq Thompson being out, all of these things, when you look at Brian Burns having been in and out of the games for the past couple weeks, and man, he's giving it hell and he's doing his best, but he's not 100%. He's going to be out this week. So we're really going to see what this pass rush looks like without Brian Burns. For everyone that wants to trade him and get rid of him and all that kind of stuff, here's a little taste. I think that what, and so I'll say this, I'll preface it by saying this. Iku Leota had a devastatingly terrible penalty last week on that offsides on the punt, right? That continued the drive. I believe they got points off of it. I hated to see that. It hurt my soul.
We need to talk about penalties for the review. Go back.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're correct on that.
I do want to talk about that. I want to talk about
that. Devastating penalty. But when you watch the tape again, Iku Leota had the most juice of any of the other edge players, I thought. Iku Leota and Amari Barno, as far as pass rushing, were the only ones that even remotely got pushed. Iku steamrolled Quentin Nelson as the offensive guard, the Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber offensive guard for the Colts. I'm talking just like steamrolled him, ran right through him, got after the quarterback. Next play, kind of got a little bit of pressure on the outside. Iku has NFL skill traits, and he's going to have to show up on Thursday against Chicago because without Brian Burns, man, it's not – DJ Johnson isn't the answer on the pass rush. DJ Johnson had some really nice reps in run support and run defense. Really, I mean, he does have that ability to set that edge and maintain it and shed blocks to make tackles and run support. I've highlighted a couple of those plays. But
and he tries really hard. He tries really hard.
He tries hard, man. He's got a decent motor. Like, he's out there doing stuff. Yeah. But holy smokes, man, is he not terrific at all in pass rush. I mean, just like devastatingly bad. I did like what I saw from Jamie Robinson. We want to talk about like the young guys getting some burn that are getting opportunities. Jamie played really confidently out there, man. And that's nice to see because I don't see a lot of confidence on the defensive side of the football from players outside of him and Frankie Luvu, right? Derek Brown is a menace. He's been playing well. But Jamie Robinson is somebody that could add something to this defense playing that nickel position. He played all of his alignments came from within the box and from the slot position. I thought he looked really natural in that, man. And that's something that if he can play better, that adds another element for Evero to start using in that disguising open and closed middle of the field. But we're going to get tested against this Bears defense or this Bears offense because of the way that they run the football and they get Khalil Herbert back. So it is going to be interesting to see how this all meshes. But Evero has got to get some credit, man. And you talk about the game plan maybe being because we get run against so much that our pass defense is as good as it is. I don't know, man. That was a thing that I said the first couple weeks because we played against these run-heavy teams. But we're seeing every team that throws out whatever they want to, we're seeing Evero kind of answer the bell here at the latter portion. Outside of the Miami game, and look, Miami's going to make a lot of people look foolish on defense. Outside of that game, dude, I didn't see being completely overwhelmed with this defense, despite playing a hodgepodge of players. To be fair, you know.
Yeah, no, we shut down Zach Moss. Zach Moss couldn't do anything, and a lot of that had to do with Downs was not himself. We only had to really worry about Pittman, so we got to load up the box a little bit. I mean, and the way that the game went, sure. But yes, I agree with you. We are, and guys are stepping up, man. Tuttle is playing better. Our guys on the defense, Derek Brown is playing so well, and no one's talking about it. No one's talking about it, and it sucks to be him because he's playing. Him and Luvu look great,
and so much of Brown's impact, man, is just not statistical accumulation.
Exactly.
It just isn't going to show up on the stat sheet. And I know that frustrates fans. Well, yeah, at least the box score fans. I get it, but man, he is so good in run defense. Like, he's really, really good. If you just take a little bit of time, man, watch the game again and just focus on 95, he pops up a lot, dude. And it's not just in the backfield stopping for tackles for a loss. It's not just maintaining his gap positioning or his responsibilities. You will see him literally tracking down the running backs left and right all across the field, man. He is involved in so many plays and opens up opportunities for some of these secondary players to make the plays that they do, because there's multiple linemen or multiple tight ends accounting for staying on Derek Brown throughout the entire play. It's just those kinds of things, man, that don't show up on stat sheets. And Brian Burns has a lot of those as well, man, where he is making plays and somebody has to come off their assignment to chip on Burns or to come off and try to help. These guys are doing everything that they can, man. And like, that's commendable. And I think that they should get some recognition for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think people are starting to talk about this defense. And putting them in like, wow, if you look at the overall numbers, Carolina's defense is
pretty good.
They're good. Yeah. Real quick before we move on to the preview of the Bears, how crushing are these calls that these officials make?
Man.
Game-changing calls. I think this game looks a little different if they don't call that targeting or defensive receiver hit on Xavier Woods.
I 100% agree.
It is just a game-changing call when you call that on third down. We can talk about the Troy Hill hit too. The phantom roughing the
wide one.
Yeah, we can talk about that as well, but that wasn't as crushing of a
and that one. And that one also, though, I think that there's more room for understanding why that one was called, right? Like that's a little bit more of that bang bang type of play where like the guidelines aren't as black and white on what should and shouldn't be called. There's literal like guidelines on what makes the targeting, what part of the body has to be hit in order to even like remotely warrant that kind of thing. Yeah. I don't know what you want Xavier Woods to do in that position. I don't know what you want any NFL defender to do. Like, he's trying to jar a ball loose to stop a completion that would continue a drive. That is the definition of playing defense in the NFL. And you're going to flag him for doing every single thing right. You want to talk about, he launched. The receiver is in the air. He had to bring his body up to make contact.
Right.
He hit him underneath the shoulder pads in the chest area. Michael Pittman said that it was a clean hit. What the hell do you want these guys to do? If we're going to start penalizing players from making really good plays, we got to just play flag football, man. Because at this point, the refs are making way too critical, decisive calls that have ramifications throughout the entire damn game. And it's just unfair, man.
This season.
Yeah.
If this team 2-6 being a game and a half away from second from the Falcons versus being 1-7. It's
Yep.
a totally different season-changing call.
Yep.
And it just
And why can't we review it? Why is that not reviewable?
Right, exactly. Yeah, if pass interference, I get that was stupid because it's so subjective.
Sure.
But when you call it targeting, like we do it in college football. Like we literally do it in college football. We review it. So I hated that so much, and I hated it for Xavier Woods, and I hated it for the Panthers. Honestly, if you watch the Cowboys, Eagles game, I have no love for the Cowboys at all. But man, did I feel bad for a lot of those calls that went against them. Like I think there was like a little hand to the face. The dude didn't even touch him in the face. Like, it was just it was weird. Officiating is just like egregious, and no one's really talking about it. Yeah. And I don't want to talk about it too much because it's just every week.
Well, and because teams don't lose games because of calls necessarily. Like I am a firm believer that like the refs can make really bad calls and it can impact a game, but you have way more opportunities as the teams playing the game to make your own impact on it and to change things and to make plays. But in these critical times and stuff like that, you can't just completely blow that off, man. Like that was such a important time of this game. I'm with you. It's very, very frustrating to have these game-altering calls being made and there not being the same accountability for these refs. And there's got to be a checks and balances. If you're going to let them make these calls that can have such big ramifications, let's make sure that the booth who sits there and watches all these damn calls can say, nope, that was a mistake. Let's correct that. Right. Like, I don't think that that's a crazy premise to suggest, but I'm with you. I don't want to harp too much on it because that would make it seem like that's why we lost the football game.
And a lot of these things that are like easy calls, like if they can't immediately see it within the 5 seconds of them having the flag, they throw the flag. They say it to the people in the booth, and they say, no, that's not it. And like, all right, we'll pick up the flag. Like that's not insane. It's not insane to think about. Like that's not going to change the outcome. That's not going to change how long the game goes. I mean, if it's like okay, whatever. Like that's not an egregious call. We'll move on. But if it's like I see that immediately on the replay that he didn't come close to doing anything illegal, then pick up the flag. Anyways, let's move on to the preview of what we're seeing with the Bears and what we're seeing with the Panthers and how we think this game is going to play out. I personally think it's kind of going to be a lot of the same, unfortunately. I think that they're them receiving not Sweat, but crap. The Bears get the pass rusher from the Commanders. Why can't I think
they did get Sweat.
They got Sweat. Who
Montez Sweat. No, you're thinking of the 49ers got Chase Young. Man. Yeah, I think, Sweat. Yeah. Bears just got Montez Sweat. Yeah.
Sorry, I just saw Sweat in the Eagles because they're a different Sweat in the Eagles.
Right.
The Bears got Sweat. With the Bears getting Sweat, I think that there's still going to be a huge pass rush on Bryce Young. I don't think there's going to be much we can do about it. The only thing that I can hope for is we just stick with the run game. I think that Bears defense is looking a lot better. I am nervous about if Justin Fields comes back. I think they like where they are, even with them losing to the Saints, because I think they should beat the Saints. And if Agent doesn't throw like 19 picks or however many picks he throws, they probably do win that game. So I think they're playing with a lot of confidence. They're going to be at home. DJ Moore revenge game, Foreman revenge game. Yep. They have too much momentum. We have too little momentum. I'm nervous. Only thing think we can do is slow the game down, try to win a
defensive
10-7 game. I don't know. I'm nervous. So you're going to start talking about the offense. That's how I feel. I think that they're going to get too much pressure on Bryce, and they're just going to do what everybody else has done. They're going to play physical at the line of scrimmage. They're going to make you beat them deep, and I just don't know if we're going to be able to. How do you see it playing out for the offensive portion of it?
Yeah, I think that the problem that I have is when you look at the Bears defense, They're 32nd in the league, last in the league in sacks. Obviously, that was a different defense before they got Montez Sweat, but I don't know that necessarily solves that problem for them getting Montez Sweat. He's a good player, but they still have to figure out how to get after the quarterback from other positions. I mean, it's a similar predicament that the Panthers faced with having Brian Burns, right? Just because you have one really good pass rusher doesn't mean that your pass rush unit is going to be consistent and get after the quarterback. It is something to watch, though. I'm more concerned, honestly, with Andrew Billings in the middle of that defensive line. That is a large, human, strong fella. And we have had some serious problems on the interior of our offensive line unit. Trying to maintain the ground game against the Chicago Bears is a difficult thing, too. They're 5th in the league in rushing yards allowed, with the league best yards per carry average of only allowing 3.3 yards per rushing attempt. So it's a difficult situation to say that this is when we're going to create and implement our offensive identity as a run-first football team, because this is the team that they're 29th in pass yards allowed. If you want to exploit a team's weakness, that's their weakness. But we saw what the Indianapolis Colts' weakness was on paper last week, and we saw what we were not able to do against that. So I think instead of us game planning so much around the opponent's weaknesses sometimes, we're going to have to formulate our strengths, and we're going to have to just try to play to that. And I agree with you that as of right now, man, there is no way around saying that our theoretical strength on offense has to be the run game. Even if it hasn't been the most consistent thing this year, you can't tell Bryce Young to stand behind this offensive line, the amount of pressure that they are allowing on a consistent basis, and say, Bryce, we need you to go out there and lead this team to a win and execute at a very high level, despite having very little support. So take some of that onus off of it. Let Bryce go out there. The Bears are 30th in points allowed. On paper, man, there's opportunities to make some plays and put up some points in this one. I'm just going to hedge my bet here and not and not endorse that that's actually going to come to fruition, because I haven't seen anything from this offense that makes me even remotely confident right now.
Yeah, the thing is, like, yeah, so usually, like, when you think about Zach Wilson or something like that, you know, you'll do something like you'll get him out of the you do something where you bootleg him, you get out of the pocket, do like throw a pass to the tight end, get him a couple of completions, make sure he gets like in rhythm. That's not our problem. A little bit of confidence in rhythm, yeah, that's not a problem. Problem isn't Bryce needing to get in rhythm. The problem is that just give him some sort of protections and get people open. And it sucks because it's like my first time where I'm just like, I don't see it. I don't see what we can do.
It's really frustrating, man, and difficult to give analysis and predictive ideas when what we saw work against Houston in Thomas Brown's debut, we didn't see much of any of that in the following game, where you're facing a exploitable defense. And so going into this one on the road, Thursday Night Football, short week with more injuries, I just don't know how we're supposed to feel confident about any of the offensive concepts being able to work. We talk about when Chark was on the show and he mentioned using the personnel differently and deploying people in different alignments and kind of playing more to their natural ability. There were situations, man. It was a 3rd and 10 for the Panthers from the 20-yard line in the fourth quarter. We ran a couple of 3-yard stick routes with Adam Thielen and Chark. And the read was to Thielen, or Bryce panicked because he was sped up, which again is something that I do feel a little bit concerned about, man, is that Bryce is playing too fast. And it's from the repetitive nature of having guys in his face early, that it is becoming second nature to him that he doesn't have the internal clock that he thinks he needs to have to complete some of these plays. But we're using these guys in a way that even if Thielen does catch that 3-yard pass and he has room, how is he your yards after catch guy? What do you anticipate him doing with that route in that situational predicament, right? I want to see different usage, man. Like Mingo there, if you're going to run that. Terrace Marshall Jr. I just don't know what else you're going to do. Are you going to use Amir Smith-Marset at all? If you need some speed, are you going to use the one guy that has speed and shiftiness? Do you call up Derek Wright this week? Well, is that somebody that comes up if Chark is inactive? Can maybe we see that work out?
Nope,
I know that Mike
got Jordan Matthews.
Oh yeah, Jordan Matthews. I forgot about that secret weapon, man. I mean, dude, we're talking about a guy that has 5 snaps since 2020, and he's called up and he's going to be active. I don't know what we're doing here, bringing these used to be NFL players back into the league and expecting that to be an impactful decision. And I'm not saying that they have to be, our primary targets or our number one defender. I know that that's not the objective, bringing these guys in. But are you telling me that there's not anybody that's been playing football this entire year or even the past 3 years that couldn't provide better depth and more explosive ability? Like, what is Jordan Matthews going to do, man? No block, no rock is what Thomas Brown says. You think Jordan Matthews is a prolific blocker?
Yeah.
I don't think so. So where does he fit in? Where are you going to play him? I don't know, man.
I think that
they're not doing a lot of shit that makes sense to me.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of. I think we're going to see like 10 targets for Miles Sanders for 7 catches and 25 yards. And
Bryce does need to use that running back check down a little bit more. I think that there was opportunities that he just couldn't see him. Yeah. And it's not a height thing that he can't see these guys. It's the pressure in his face and not being able to move anywhere within the pocket because there's pressure immediately in front of him and then pressure all around on the back ends coming from the outside because Icky can't. I mean, dude, I don't know what to say about Icky at this point. I'm starting to have really bad feelings about either James Campen's ability to develop him into anything outside of what he already is, or Icky's ability to absorb information and put it into real-time action, because he is guessing so much, man, and it is killing him. You see him lunging with his hands way too often because somebody acts like they're going to come right at him. They're going to do the old DJ Johnson and just run into your chest and give up. But instead, they actually do an NFL move, an NFL pass rush move, and beat him immediately. That just can't continue, man. If you want Bryce Young to be able to stand in the pocket and make throws, that has to change.
It didn't really get me because like it doesn't usually bother me when guys don't wear their emotions on their sleeves. But man, just seeing him in the Bryce interview and just the way he was smiling the entire time, like, dude, this is your fault. Like this offense is mostly your fault. Like that is running so poorly. You shouldn't be smiling ever. Like you just shouldn't be smiling until you play a good game.
Yeah,
that whole left side of the offensive line is just abysmal lately. But we're talking about. I don't want to like.
No. And then when we talk about like the Panthers defense playing well, they've got a little bit of a challenge in this one too, though, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
the Bears are 3rd in rushing yards in the league, and they get Khalil Herbert back this week. And Khalil Herbert has been a very productive running back, an explosive running back when he's been healthy for the Bears. So you're going to get him to help team up with Dante Foreman, and we know. I would anticipate they're going to try to get Foreman at least a handful of situational looks, maybe get him a score.
Oh, dude, he's going to crush us.
Right. DJ Moore going up against Dante Jackson. Evero's already talked about that. Frank Reich's already talked about that. That is the matchup that is going to happen on Thursday night. That's got to make me a little bit iffy too. I thought Dante played a pretty good game last week, and the week before I thought he played pretty solid as well, to be honest. I think that DJ Moore is a really good wide receiver, and he's got some internal motivation on this one, and there is no denying that. And one thing that you can never say about DJ is that he lacked fire. That dude is he's a motivated player, and he's going to go out there and he's going to do his best to remind us that he is the best receiver this franchise has had outside of Steve Smith and Musa Muhammad.
Hopefully Fields can't really grip the ball correctly.
Right. Well, and you know what? They do allow a lot of sacks. I think they're 29th in the league in sacks allowed. Our problem is that we're not going to have Brian Burns, and you know, who are you going to have going after him? But if you're looking for a way,
Hayes should be back.
I think he's questionable. I don't know if he's going to go. I hope he does.
Two full practices.
I hope he gives it a go, man. Yeah, 100%. If not, you're talking about Amari Barno, DJ Johnson, Iku Leota. Yeah.
Yeah, who starts? I think they have to put Frankie would have to start at outside linebacker. I would assume.
Man,
he would have to, right? I don't know.
I don't know, man. I honestly, I don't
know who's on this team anymore. Like I look at like our starting defense.
You can't even say, well, maybe Luigi Vallon gets his minutes this week, right? Because he's already on IR. Like Justin Houston, nope, not available. Yeah, it's difficult, man. It's going to be a lot of DJ Johnson and a lot of Amari Barno and Iku Leota. And hey, man, fingers crossed that Iku keeps up the momentum after the big penalty. Maybe he keeps playing the way that he was, because I did think that he looked pretty decent out there for what it's worth.
Yeah, he's the best pass rusher that's going to dress. That's not named Frankie Luvu. Yeah. So, all right, let's. We're going pretty long on just being sad about our Panthers.
Yeah.
I mean, I really want to, like. I'm trying to think of a world where it gets better, and we go more, because I'm trying to like live in the Texans game and kind of write this Colts game off.
Yeah. But
I don't know if I can, because there's just a blueprint with how to beat us. Like,
yes.
It just came up. Justin Fields doubtful. Let's go. That helps. Hopefully, we get Bajan to throw some interceptions.
I mean, that's a significant thing, because I do think that it allows this game to feel a little bit more even keel, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think if you had Justin Fields out, if you had Justin Fields out there,
prediction.
Yeah, I think that you're worried about Justin Fields. His rushing ability, man, against this defense would be very, very, very difficult to defend, because we already don't want to have no pass rush, dropping everyone in coverage. So you're going to have Deion Jones spying Justin Fields. That changes things dramatically to have Bajan back there throwing that football.
Right.
So that does make a significant difference.
All right. So I'm going to go predictions. And now that now I'm trying to change it because Fields isn't there. I'm going to say.
I don't know what you're going to do here. And honestly, it's like it's making my stomach hurt even thinking about making a prediction right now.
I'm going to be optimistic. Because I did have I had the Bears winning when Fields was playing, but now that Bajan's playing, I'm going to say Panthers win 13-9.
Man, that's wild.
Yeah.
I can't do it, man.
I know. I had the Bears winning, but
I really am struggling to find wins with this team, with the way that this offense is playing. And if we showed more of an ability to adjust and change some things up, I could get behind the optimistic train of thought. Yeah. I think that if we're going to continue to try to get success running the same things that we're doing, I think we're going to continue getting the results that we've seen. I feel like Bryce is going to have a bounce back. Let me say that. I think that Bryce is going to have a bounce back performance. I 1000% do not anticipate pick sixes. I think that there will be a more efficient offense, but it is not going to be a very productive offense for the Panthers still. I'm going to go 17-13 Chicago.
Okay, so we have the same score except you have another touchdown for Chicago.
Yep.
You're probably right.
I just, man, I'm not gonna be able to predict a win for Carolina on the road on a short week after that performance, with no inspiring comments from the coaches either, to be completely honest, man. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't have a good vibe. And a lot of football, you could say whatever you want to. Look at what the Las Vegas Raiders just did. They fired their dipshit of a coach that clearly did not have the pulse of that locker room, right?
Yeah.
Antonio Pierce comes in, guys are having fun, they're smoking the victory cigars,
And
they're
that's what I've
shooting
been
the hoops in the
saying,
locker
man.
room, and all of a sudden that
gotta
team,
have fun.
yeah, man, they believe in themselves, they believe in each other. They didn't believe in Josh McDaniels, and I'm not trying to insinuate that that's exactly what's happening here with Frank Reich and this staff, but it certainly feels like nobody on this Panthers team is enjoying themselves outside of that Texans game. And yeah, it's always easier to enjoy yourself when you're winning. But man, like I just don't see the twinkle in anybody's eyes right now. I don't think anyone's enjoying playing football here in Carolina.
Yeah, they're not putting them in situations to do what they do well. You gotta do that. And it's just, and oh God. Yeah, I'm just because it's a must win. If we don't beat the Bears, we don't win a game. I don't think. I think that's the last bit of emotional hope that the players have left.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think that they get it back if they can't beat the Bears. I mean, you still got 4 division games, so maybe.
Yeah,
I just think it's just that must win. I think this week, just for them, and I think they come out. If they don't come out inspired this week in a must win, I just don't see them getting it back. So I'm going to say,
shouldn't we have come out super inspired and motivated at home last week, coming off of a win?
I don't think that they weren't, but I think that pick six, the 2 plays that really took it all out of them, and it shouldn't. I kind of agree with you, like that those things shouldn't derail us. Was the targeting the defensive receiver and the pick six. I think those 2 plays took all the wind out of our sails, and we didn't get it back. Hopefully,
somebody needs to take the reins on this football team, though, and in the locker room, wherever it is. Yeah. Somebody needs to take control and bring something to the table that does light the fire and that can reignite the motivation. We cannot be a team that is so easily destructed by losing momentum in an early portion of a football game that they never get their confidence back. There's not confidence already built in this team. It's like they have to build confidence on a weekly basis, and we're not a good enough football team to be rebuilding confidence every single Sunday or Thursday in this case.
Yeah.
You need to have something already established, man, and we don't. And that is concerning because that is the identity you talk about. That is that outside of on the field, X's and O's, a good team is a bunch of dudes that want to play with each other, that believe in playing with each other. I don't get that feeling from this club.
I don't get it from the offense. And that's somebody needs to come out.
The defense. Yeah, you're right. That's a better way.
Captain. The defense is inspired, and that might be an Evero thing. It might be you got guys like Bell, Luvu, Brown. These these high energy personalities that come out. And say, this is exactly. We don't have that on offense, and I think that's what we're missing. And it might be a DJ Moore could have been that guy, but I don't want to. Yeah, whatever. We'll wait and see. Let it happen. Come on, Panthers. Just do it. Get this momentum back. Get it rolling. I think we've gone long enough. I think that it's good to end it here, and we will probably do like a bonus episode this weekend since we don't have a game. But we'll see. I don't want to make any promises because I always break them. But we'll end it right here, and we'll end it like we always do. And we the Panthers are listening when we say this, but keep pounding.
Keep pounding, please.
Please.